I did see a death dodo, but I didn't really want to waste another few days and thousands of frogs last for 3.9 million total. And then finally, as the sun set, my Omega was tamed. I wanted to name it Megan, but
freaking,
then I
oh
realized
my
it was
god.
Megan, so I named it Omega instead. Day 60. And I decided to start off the day by taking Omega for a leisurely stroll down the beach before stopping by the obelisk to see what I needed for the Elder Dragon. As I wanted a superstructure's tech transmitter, which would allow me to
400?
scan for any creatures I needed. I ended up at
No, this is a
Volcano
scam.
Island, which also happens to be the cave entrance for an artifact.
Hold up.
Only problem is you have
Oh
to
no,
walk through lava to get to it.
it's not a scam. Never mind.
Omega made the cave very easy though, as I could just munch my
Oh
way through,
my
while
god.
basically getting cooked alive from being inside a volcano. But
Why am I?
now had the artifact of the immune. As
Why
I was
does?
flying back to my base on the morning of day 61, I came across a new candidate.
Okay, there we go.
So I quickly shot back to the base to raise up some frogs and cover some wood and some spoiled meat to make my colonial slurry. The only thing a Lucanidae might consider eating.
Can y'all see?
The frog army was out and ready to start
My
the
freaking
bizarre
cam.
taming method where you have to get this giant beetle to RKO
There we go.
to be able to deal torpor to it. The rest of the day was spent searching for some more rexes to try and tame, but the only thing I could find was a poor abandoned pteranodon from Ben and Kaz. I didn't get to sacrifice a ton of frogs, knocking out a max level Anki, but that brought the rest of the day to an end. Day 62 started and I immediately came across a JP Spino that went about as bad as you could hope, with all my frogs dying to it. Fortunately, alpha frogs like they came from a factory, and so I grabbed some more and went back to knocking out the Spino. After I forgot to put any meat in the Spino to actually tame it, I saw the Ben and Kaz tribe was online, so I went over to give them a free taxi ride to fetch their poor abandoned pteranodon. The rest of the day was spent flying around aimlessly. I mean, like, that's exactly what I wrote in my note. Flew around aimlessly. Seriously, I really wish I gave myself something better to work with. Anyway, thankfully, as the day came to an end, my Lucanidae had finished taming who I named Lucius. Day 63 came around, so I headed off to pick up my Anki, and on my way back to the base, I came across a Rexy that I really wanted.
A device. Oh.
360 no-scope in all my fronts as they got close to him. Even more damage. Frog after frog was sacrificed to this Rexy, but yet they were not enough, so it was time to get back to the base. Day 64 continued the cycle of raising frogs, attacking the Rexy, watching the frogs die, breeding more frogs, and repeat. Eventually, by the time I had the Rexy down, I was greeted with a Zilla baby outside my base, which I actually wanted to tame. However, the tribe
Goofy, bro.
and killed off their bird, so I immediately threw out Omega to dispatch the Zilla baby to save their bird. I was then also tasked with taking down a JP Rex on the beach, torturing some members of the server, which you are welcome to join. Link to the Discord is in the video description, and while you're at it, go ahead and hit the like button. I'd greatly appreciate it. Finally, as the sun set, my Rexy was tamed, and I flew off to pay Itsy and Bitsy a visit, who I murdered with Omega for some sweet loot. As I was making myself a tasty breakfast on the morning of day 65, I took out Lucius for some good old wood harvesting, and my gosh, is the Lucanidae incredible for gathering wood. Towards the end of the day,
where is Alan?
A Zetsumetsu no clue if I actually said that correctly, and decided to try and knock it out. I was able to get it stuck on a cliff, but it ended up completely destroying my Teodria with its stuck projectile attack. As I finally knocked it out, not gonna try to say that name again, I realized I have no kibble.
How I do survival mode, bro?
And I have no kibble farms. What is wrong with me? And especially since it killed my last flyer, I had to run all the way back to base on Omega. After a grueling night's walk through the Ab Cave, killing some rock drakes along the way, day 66 was here. I finally made it back to my base, dodging some Rexes along the way. And I decided to check out the resources I actually needed for some food. Started to craft some greenhouse structures I needed more metal. Thankfully, Anchor is great for gathering metal. So great, in fact, my Teodria had a very slow flight back to base. At day's end, I finally had everything I needed to make myself a nice little greenhouse. I ended up working throughout the night, into the start of day 67, gathering what I needed to set up my greenhouse, planting the crops and using the fertilizer from the dung beetles I had tamed however long ago. And then day 68 started and I woke up to a pest problem, which I killed with my shotgun. And then I was invited to a tour of the base of the Gallimimus tribe. Had a nice chill station and a pleasant hot shower. Sometimes it's nice to just relax.
What? I have my
I had
clap.
these grappling hooks to escape the base. On my way out, I walked onto the beach for a meeting where I killed a sperm whale using a dragon shout, sending the body flying out of the water. The rest of the day was spent flying around aimlessly again. I really need to kill the alpha dragon to unlock the superstructure's tech transmitter, which has the unique ability to scan for creatures and tell you their coords. I came across Chaotic Space, who has an awesome Let's Play series going on the cluster. Day 69. Started out great as I came across an alpha corner, which I was able to kill for some much needed experience before stopping by the cave of our adorable twin spiders, Itsy and Bitsy, for some much needed loot. Omegle really is pretty powerful, but he will most likely meet his match when you take on the Colossus Megalodon on day 100. I put Omegle into my Teodria's inventory, but we'll get to why that's bad in a few. As I continued to search the entire day for anything to tame, I found an alpha raptor that I started fighting, before a stupid little lightning hunt trick came and knocked me off my mark. So I jumped away from the trio and immediately began looking for my Omegle to throw out. Where is he? That's right, still in my Wyvern's inventory. So panicking, I finally decided to throw out Lucius, who was good for a few seconds, till my trio died. And now the raptor was focusing me! So I jumped off once again and finally had the smarts to throw out a Rexy, which eventually managed to kill the raptor, only to then throw himself off a cliff in protest to my stupidity. Yeah, day 69 fucked me hard. Thankfully I was able to recover all my stuff, no thanks to the Rexy, and this dreadful day came to an end. As I headed off on day 70 into the underwater pirate cave, I almost ended up dying and losing my Suko multiple times while grabbing the artifact of the cunning. Fortunately, no other losses were had other than my dignity. With how much the eels were messing me up, I managed to grab a few of the artifacts and chucking them into my panda before heading off to the next cave. By the time I got to the next cave, it was already day 71. As I got distracted trying to tame a Yeti, which went miserably as it decided to yeet itself off a cliff. Running through the cave went fairly smoothly, right up until the moment a dank Polovia jumped, stunning me right next to dank Polobe. At least Omegle was there to save me from my bad luck. I had to break through a massive boulder with my pickaxe just to get to the artifact of the strong. Then I performed my greatest Tarzan impression by grappling across instant death hits, which can be an instant loss for all of your gear if you're uncareful. But hey, at least I got a Viking cloth shirt, yay! I almost lost Omegle to a death, but as he was running off thanks to another damn Polovia, but by the edge of his toes, I did not fall in. So I grabbed my artifact of the Skylord and hightailed it out of this cave. I almost have everything I need to fight the Alpha Dragon. Day 72 started with a visit from a Dalo taming Dalo, some much needed base building, and setting up a small storage box so I could easily tell what I still needed for the dragon. I also crafted an Archie saddle for Ghost, who is new to the server, not a high enough level yet.
There is
On my way
nothing
back,
in
I
here.
started the dreaded search for Uteranus kills, so I could harvest their lungs. Searching and searching and searching took place, but Uties were suddenly the rarest creature on the map. Day 73, the great Uteranus hunt continued as I flew across the entire map, searching high and low, before I came across a JW Evolved Anki, thanks to a tip from my Discord. I sacrificed some frogs to test out its damage and then threw out Omegle. It was time to battle. Fighting this Anki was a lot harder than I expected, as she was hitting hard. However, using the genius tactic of running away to get onto a higher spot and still attack, I was able to slowly whittle her health down until crash. The server had crashed. As I loaded back in, I immediately hopped back onto Omegle to find the Yankee was gone. It's moving day, day 74. I finally realized I actually have to move
that's
into
a baby
new
cat.
base to call it that. So I packed up everything into multiple wyverns to and from the base, transporting everything I needed. This
But
took
where
like
is the
90%
furnace?
of the day. So I spent the remaining 10% raising some more
Furnace
tadpoles.
could
I almost
possibly
immediately put
be.
all my brand new frogs to work on day 75
Can
as I threw them at a
hold
Rexy trying to tame it. But a stupid Basilisk
stack of
Circus kept
items.
ruining my strat, so I knocked it out too. It took a few attempts, but the Rexy was finally asleep. Except the silly thing fell asleep in the water, so I started to raise its oxygen bar. I managed to get some prime meat from the nearby dinos, but I didn't quite have enough yet. Waking up on day 76, I finally had enough prime meat as I ripped more lungs out of a Yuti. Only to come back and find the Yuti wasn't drowning at all, so I didn't even need to rush. But at least now I had another Rexy. So I decided to continue searching for more damned UTs. How did...
Electrified. Ion. Hungok tire.
Start mining some stone. And, it literally says 99 plus. How I make bread. Here it is.
Oh, just to get 10
Craft the stuff.
10.
Mud.
I never found any Uranus. Figures. But I did come across another max level 350 Rexy. So I decided to take
I
that
need
one too.
more wood.
Yeah, you guessed it. Frogs. I ended up getting them all killed, so I had to shoot back to the base. And while I was there, shoot some damned itchy stealing my meat. On day 77, I came back to the Rexy I was knocking out the previous day, which happened relatively painlessly. So I went off to get some prime meat by killing a giga nearby. I got distracted by a female red panda.
I don't even want that,
now
bro.
I could finally breed shoulder bits, so I wouldn't run out anymore. So I went and did just that and got myself the tiniest little baby red panda. I heard Bart was also looking for a breeding pair of pandas, so I struck up a deal and offered pandas in exchange for some binturong that I could breed. I met up with them and exchanged our trade, and I was back off to go check on my Rexy that was tamed. Only to find it had been murdered by some oversized koala bears. Archaeandrous. So as frustrated as I was, I murdered all of them. The women and children too. The morning of the 78th day, I found an Ultimasaurus. And since I had zero clue how strong they were, decided to try and tame one. Only to have it fear all my frogs and murder them one by one. Maybe this wouldn't be so easy. It took some trial and error, but finally I was able to get it knocked out and ready to be tamed. Which was soon ruined by a stupid amphixion that came and munched on it while I was AFK browsing Twitter. In sheer frustration, I just killed the Ultima and flew off to go murder some more UTs. I ended up searching far and wide, high and low, but only managed to find one. A level 280 that I thought would do more good for me and tame than dead. So I chased it down a cliff, tranking it out as the sun set. As I was taming up my UT, watching the sunrise of day 79, another Rexy came across my path that I decided to tame. It took some corralling, like literally corralling the Rexy with my armadillo to stop it running too far, before I finally had it sleeping like a baby. Thankfully, had no more problems after that, so I had myself another Rexy and Uranus to add to my army. Day 81, I finally named my red panda Pabu, and then grabbed all my creatures to officially move into the new base. I set up a new little breeding pen for my frogs in the small puddle of my castle, and then started to raise up a batch of fresh sacrifices, soldiers, for taming. I set up some lights so I wouldn't be afraid of the dark anymore, then took out my Suko and my frogs in search of a sperm whale to tame. I came across a level 270 and got to work. Fortunately, they're slow, and I got it about 70% knocked out before the end of the day. On the 82nd day, I continued my goal of taming the sperm whale, which went pretty successfully, as by the end of the day I had prime meat in its inventory and it was taming up. I then came across a low-level female that I decided to tame up so I could breed them. And as I was going to pick up my female, I got completely ambushed by a school of jellyfish, and was completely chain stunned and killed. Waking up on day 83 after dying, I raced to grab a fly and something to kill the jellyfish, which just so happened to be a Rexy. I was able to recover my gear pretty easily after that, picked up the male I was taming and flew back to base to craft a saddle. The morning of day 84, I set up some more lights and then headed off to the ocean, and was sorely disappointed to learn that the whales can't breed. So I figured just the one would be enough and went off in search of basilos to kill for their blubber. I then realized I had a name I was going well yet, so I named him Johnny Sins, after the famous doctor, lawyer, plumber, and astronauts. I spent the entire day in the ocean just searching for damn basilos, but I only found 2. I needed to kill 5 for the Alpha Dragon fight. Day 85 continued in the ocean, searching for basilos before I came across Bennett on his $1 Spino, who needed some protection to get his stuff. Gave him a hand and continued on my search for the blueberry cucumbers of the sea. These things were starting to seem as rare as the UTs. I watched an epic battle of Dilo riding his blood crystal Ivan versus Jabberwock. The Jabberwock won, but then I was able to snap the kill of the Jabberwock. Unfortunately, Dilo's Wyvern died from his wound second later. But killing the Jabberwock had a bonus, as its corpse gave me 2 tentacles, another ingredient I needed for the boss fight. By the end of the day, I had finally killed the final Bassie I needed to fight the Alpha Dragon. And all I needed was some final few UT liners. Day 86 of the search for the incredibly rare Uteranus, and I was starting to run out of time. But then a miracle happened. I was flying back to my base and came across not 1, but 2 more UTs, giving me the final lungs I needed to start the fight. Fortunately for me,
I could
was
buy a
already
pressure
ready
plate.
for it, as in between all the days I had been leveling my races, crafting saddles, and
But
breeding
then-
for mutations. Day 87, I did just want a few levels
What
of my UT
kind?
for some extra health. So I took it out into the swamp for some murder, and then flew out to the blue orb to prepare for the boss fight. I had all my creatures out and ready, put all the artifacts and
What the
drops into the terminal, only to then
Hey,
realize
Mud.
I was only level 97.
You running?
So I spent the rest of the day
Wait, wait,
murdering
more.
some creatures on Omega for levels.
E.
Day 88 was here, and it was time. Time to take on the Alpha Dragon, my greatest challenge yet. Spawning into the fight, I was on my UT, and my goal was just to keep them buffed for long enough to survive. Unfortunately, some of my rexes
Yo, villagers,
got
I'ma
into
just
a
casually
hole.
like
My
steal all
UT
this
only
stuff
had a
if y'all don't
limited
mind.
saddle, so I was taking way more damage than I expected. And then I managed to jump onto a Rexy before I was killed
What?
with my UT. Now, Rexies are
From
amazing
where?
spots, as the combination of rivalry and ascendant saddles
No,
makes
like
them
actually
incredibly
from where?
even to the fire damage of the dragon. So before all my Rexes died and losing me everything, I was able to finish off the dragon. So I ran to collect the artifact in the dragon arena, not that I ever ended up using it. And I now had the final
Yo,
key
from
unlock that I needed
where?
to ensure my victory against the Meg on day 100. The Superstructures Tech Transmitter. At the end of the day, I came across a death dodo and
Is
thought,
it-
sure, I can kill it. So day 89,
No,
I
like
sent
that.
in my Rex army and we absolutely swarmed the dodo, keeping it pinned against the wall.
Where could I have
I finally killed it, unlocking me the tech generator, which would
possibly
actually be super
have
helpful for my base. Once I was back at the base, I
nature?
just kept breeding for mutations, as with how close the dragon fight was, I was not feeling confident in fighting the Megalodon. I managed to find a level 290 Alpha 06 that would actually seriously bolster my forces, but it fell off the cliff into the ocean. So I made a trap on an underwater ledge nearby and did my best to lead it into it. Starwolf minions made this extremely challenging as they really hurt. Day 90 started with me desperately trying to move my trap without dying.
How
This
how
Alpha 06
long
was
is
not
it?
making things easy for me, but I finally got
How
it stuck,
long is it
only to have
for?
it freely walk out 2 seconds later. But even then, it wouldn't
How
have
long
happened,
is
as
that
Alpha
for?
06 was finally sick of all my games,
Oh my
took one
god,
lunge and
bro.
obliterated all my metal defenses. I genuinely had no idea it could damage metal. So, I flew back to my base with my tail between my legs, defeated by this taming attempt.
How long will that be for?
Checking for
That's what I'm
mutations,
asking myself.
raising baby rexes, and hatching more frogs. Day 91 started off with me seeing a level 290 death dodo was on the map. So I flew off to try and tame it. I managed to get it completely stuck in frogs, and it was going to work until everything went completely wrong. As the dodo broke free, summoned its minions, and massacred every frog I had with me. I was so sick of losing all my frogs the whole time. So I decided to craft myself a fancy new trank gun instead, which ended up being super expensive, but I had most of the resources I needed. I finally had my CAA trank rifle, and I was back to try and tame this dodo. I was extremely disappointed. This rifle did hardly any torpor. What a waste of resources! As I was flying back to the dodo, I crashed. Waking up on the floor of day 92, thankfully I had my pteranodon on me as armadillo was still up in the air. But I was off again, and I found a Rex saddle blueprint in the red drop, which was way better than my previous
Digging
one.
speed.
I tried for the entire day to take
Not
the
digging
but
speed,
whether it was
that's
the gates it kept destroying or the
um,
minions it kept summoning, I just simply wasn't able to get the job done. I was starting to get really concerned now. Time was running up.
did
So
I
I
not
crafted
open
myself
this
up
one?
a harvest to make, which was great, and let me get some much needed resources that I would need for
You
the
have
Rex saddle.
nothing.
And the rest of the day I kind of just
Bro.
wasted, running around, doing some odd jobs in the base. I really don't know what I was doing, kind of just procrastinating, I guess. I did, however, fly back to take on that dodo again as the day ended. Then day 93 started with the dodo murdering all my frogs again. I really should have just given up on this dodo days ago, but I desperately wanted it. Not only was I running out of days to complete this challenge, but I was running out of time in the day, as I actually had to go to sleep soon. So, try as I might, I wasn't able to do it. Day 94, a new day, and I was feeling confident. The server had restarted by now, so the death dodo from the previous days was gone, but that did not matter. I started out by making sure I had plenty of frogs. Yeah, I know, I am curious how many times I've said frog in this video. The rest of the day was spent breeding, mutating, raising, and other general nanny duties, as I wanted the strongest possible creatures. I even started a second mutation line for Rexes to maximize my efficiency. As I was flying through the redwoods on day 95, I was looking for a Vastatosaurus Rex that I'd seen on the tech transmitter. Unfortunately, by the time I got there, it was respawned as I could not find it anywhere. The rest of the day was spent searching for any powerful creatures I could tame to bolster my forces. And that's when I saw another JW evolved Anki at spawn. So I headed over, not to try and kill it, though I did want to rematch, but to try and tame it. I managed to get a trap and taking heavy amounts of torpor, but I got too close and it took one swing, whack, destroying
can
the
only
entire trap with these. Almost killed my armadillo in the process. I did not want to risk losing armadillo on day 96, so I decided to do something more relaxing instead. I was invited by Saris, an incredible builder, to come check out her base, and it just looked amazing. Extremely warm and cozy, and I was even treated to a hearty Canadian cooked steak meal. So I gave her some frogs as a thanks. The rest of the day was spent leveling Johnny Sins in the ocean,
Yes.
as he was a key part of my plan to defeat the Megalodon. Day 97, I continued the grind for mutations as well, as coming across a Rexy today, because if I couldn't get any boss tames, I was going to need a horde. So through a combination of sniping and frogs, I finally managed to get the Rexy down and taming. Even though I did completely butcher the taming effectiveness. But I had a tame, so that was a win. Day 98, the third last day of this challenge, and I don't feel confident at all. I started out by placing all my Rex fighters into a storage locker in preparation for this upcoming battle. I then headed out to go see if I could find myself another Uti, but I was sorely unsuccessful. I probably should have just used a tech transmitter. It would have saved me wasting that time. I paid a visit to one of my patrons, Jolton, to check out his floating base, and accomplished nothing else for the rest of the day. The second last day, day 99, I logged in to find rocks everywhere in my base, but that's probably because I haven't been on while working on the script. I figured I have one last shot to tame a powerful creature, so I flew off to where I'd seen a death dodo. I sacrificed multiple frogs, but unfortunately the dodo just wasn't giving me any chance, as its minions just would not leave me alone. So accepting my fate, I headed back to the base to make sure I had everything ready. I needed some more ingots to make the final few saddles, so I grabbed my harvester make and flew off to the metal nodes. I watched Skeletor put on a pretty light show and harvested up a bunch of metal. Day 100. We have made it. I spent the early hours of the morning putting my Ascendant saddles on my Rex army, putting the last few levels in and crafting up a bunch of behemoth metal gates, because I had a plan. I was going to lead the shark into shallow waters with Johnny Sins and trap it there using the gates so my Rexes could finish the job. I checked the transmitter and there was a max level Colossus Meg. It was now or never. I managed to draw the Meg in close enough and spam trap it with the gates, Unfortunately, trapping Johnny Sins in there with it as well. Rest in peace, Johnny. You were a good whale, but I had no time to mourn. I threw down my army of Rexes and jumped on Omegle for myself. The Rexes charged in, munching and thrashing around. The first wave of Rexes were killed, but I was prepared, sending in even more Rexes. The Meg was getting low on health now, and then finally, victory! The Meg has been defeated, and with that, I have beaten Jurassic Ark in 100 days. The Ebenezer Astron was once an ark full of its own sense of majestic beauty, incredible scenery, and ever so deadly dinosaurs. It has been completely overrun by creatures that only exist in our fantasies. One survivor, who henceforth shall be known only as the Wizard, discovered powerful black magic and opened a rift in reality itself.
His truck is having trouble starting, but he went to AutoZone, where a friendly AutoZoner tests and charges his battery, all for free.
Unleashing hundreds of creatures into the world. He is growing stronger day by day, and if I don't stop him in 100 days, I may never be able to. He has enlisted the help of many different guardians.
I have
they are the ones
nothing up.
holding the portal open, allowing the wizard to draw his power. But I have to be careful. Once the wizard learns I'm trying to stop him, he will start summoning more and more forces to take me down. Will I be able to recruit and learn the ways of these new beings so that I can bring down the wizard? Well, it all started on a beach, immediately under attack by a goblin. So
Oh
I
my
found the
god.
beach, grabbing some berries before punching a tree for thatch, crafting some chibis, I named one subscribe, made some basic tools and spears before
What can I
killing the goblin so
craft?
he wouldn't be able
I
to
can't
tell the
craft a
wizard of
shield,
my
can
existence.
I?
I spent some time making a bow and arrows when
I
saw
could,
a
I would just
massive
need
dude walking along
that.
the beach. Yeah, nope. As I slowly backed away to continue harvesting thatch for chibis, I set up a fire to cook myself some meat before turning to murder a nearby portal.
A water bucket, water bucket, water bucket.
When I saw another massive guy fighting the one I had just seen, I guess not everyone who came
What
from
else
the
can I
grounds
craft?
of Bandit
Can
was
I still,
so
I can
maybe I
craft
recruit some of them
a
to join me
sword.
later, whether willingly or not. I finally killed the turtle before harvesting its chitin, set up a 1x1 foundation and mortar and pestle before spending the rest of the day harvesting bushes for narco berries. In the morning, I saw the big guy getting awfully close to my base, but he actually turned out to be friendly.
Oh my
No
god.
species for that matter, but I may have to recruit him later. I killed another turtle for before running up to a blue drop, and I was in the high.
We've been playing
As I was getting dark, I
Minecraft.
saw a giant walking crab man on my beach, and he definitely did not look friendly. So I chose
No.
to just avoid him and spend the remaining parts of the day harvesting wood, thatch, stone, and flint. Another one of the wizard's minions
I'm
found
playing this.
a coral, but I needed some companions. So I boiled it, tranked it out, and
I have a
tamed
few
it. These
apples.
little guys aren't very strong, so I named him Krillin, as I was fully expecting him to die. Showed him to my base, and I just,
I
well,
need
left
sticks.
them to protect it. I saw a dead crabman in the morning and took the opportunity to harvest his rotting corpse when I saw a giant anglerfish man, who must have been the species that shell golem was fighting earlier, and since the golem was a friend, this must be an enemy. And I began pelting him with arrows from the high ground. And Krillin wanted to try and help out, but immediately got killed. But that let me learn that this was an abyssal in Ross. I would need to avenge Krillin though. Eventually killing the Ross and harvesting his corpse, I set up a small sign in mourning of Krillin before crafting a raft and beginning to move all my stuff onto it. When I saw a pterodactyl boiler, trank and shoved my meat into. My terror was awake and tamed in the morning when I named my tribe the World's Saviors. As well, that's what I was here to do. It is my destiny. That was almost just ended by in Ross. Thankfully, I was able to swim away, but his ominous floating through the water was just terrifying. I eventually swam to shore and whistled over my terror, Finished moving my stuff over and set up a basic raft design that I'd be able to finish later. Grabbed my stuff to go on the raft and set sail. When as I was leaving, I saw a kraken on the island. Yeah, not going there. I also saw a shellman on the shore and was going to say hello, but he looked mad at me, so I sailed away. Must have been one of the wizard's minions. Hopefully he doesn't snitch on my location, as I found a
Yeah,
really
these
cool
zombies
bridge
are-
going out over the water. Ran out to check out, and this looked like a pretty good base location, so I parked my boat to end off the day. I spent the morning killing the local porter for their hide. When I was able to boiler another terror to trank it out, set up a forge to smelt some ingots. When my terror finally tamed up, so I named them Terrible and Pathetic, since both were just incredibly low levels. Then running down the beach, I saw some shark people swimming in the water. Seeing they were friendly, I decided to offer him some meat in order to convince him to join my tribe, and the meat was gratefully accepted, but would take some more convincing in order to pledge his allegiance. When as the sun was rising, a goblin and kobold had found me. I managed to boiler and kill them with the assistance of the trike that was pissed at them too. Now these must have just been scouts, and the wizard will soon realize that these guys aren't coming back. So I need to start recruiting some more backup if I have any hope to survive. I crafted up some billboard and trank arrows to tame that trike that had helped me with the goblin.
A few
When out of the woods
stacks.
came a divine paladin. But he did not think I had the experience to be worth talking to, so he just ignored me as I finally knocked out the
There we
trike,
go.
shoved some berries up its butt, and now there was an ant walking around near my raft. Who thankfully was friendly as well. And then a crabman showed
Beef
up.
litter.
Not the same species of crabman I saw earlier, and this guy was interested in hearing
Okay,
what I had
a
to say.
little water
So I
bucket.
gave him some cooked meat, but then he was full and told me to come back later. The shark man was then willing to accept some more food, and I learned that he is a Tiber, a race of shark folk who usually have no interest in land dwellers, but being here in the strange land of Ebonus Astrum, he knew they would all have to pick a side eventually. The paladin was still not interested in me, but finally in the evening I was able to saddle up my PT. Though I never took my first flight just yet in case the wizard sees my location. Waking up on day 7, I tracked down
There we
another
go.
PT before seeing my trike had finished taming, saddled it up, and used it to do a massive bush and tree harvesting, gathering
There.
berries, thatch, and wood. When I had my first panic moment as I saw a dragon flying around nearby. This must have been the wizard searching for me. But he fortunately did
Yeah.
not see me as I was able to hide behind this tree as it flew away.
That was the
I
most
guess that seaman from earlier had contacted the wizard. I would need to be careful. I set up a smithy as I wanted some metal tools when the crabman I met earlier was finally ready to be recruited into the tribe. He even allowed me to get a lift on his shoulders when I learned his name is Mr. Krabs. And Mr. Krabs is actually a fantastic wood gatherer. Maybe after this wizard is defeated, he can be a lumberjack. So I spent the rest of the day gathering a ton of wood with Mr. Krabs. Before finally in the morning, I took off on my terrible as I needed a better idea of my surroundings. I saw a little gnome who I stopped by to say hi, except I had nothing he wanted, so I wasn't able to recruit him when a forest troll spotted me and tried to chase me off. But my PT was strong enough to kill it. I ended up landing on the ledge to begin setting up my fortress, as this would be a strong defensible position should the wizard send his forces to attack. I ended up running out of some wood, so I needed to
My
get Mr.
base
Krabs
is,
to cut
like,
down some more trees.
Gotta
before
work a
expanding
water
the floor
bucket.
plan to a point I was happy with for the remaining parts of the day. Then in the morning I took off in search of crystal, as I really needed a spyglass. I even flew past the cave troll in the evening, and the wizard was getting lots of weird creatures for his army. I eventually saw some crystal on the cliff in the distance and was able to sneak around as there was a cyclops smashing around. But I gathered my crystal and left. As I was flying back to my base, I began to see some meteors raining
I have
right
like
off
40 of
my
those.
base. The wizard had found me. He had started a meteor storm right near my base. I would have to navigate extremely carefully, and thankfully no meteors had hit my base just yet, but this just goes to show why you have to be extremely careful with keeping your location and information hidden. Once the meteor storm had finished, I went to go check on the Tiber, and they were both completely unscathed from the wizard's attack. And actually, everyone was pretty okay. I think the wizard was too focused on his portal to be able to make his meteor deal any damage. They were just stunning everything on impact. I finished placing down some foundations and walls for my base, as I would definitely need defense if the
Don't
wizard
see
chose to
it.
actually send a force to attack. When in the morning, I finished
Oh my
placing the
God.
wall before flying out on Terrible only to run out of staff right next to a goblin.
Chicken, don't shoot it.
Rip, terrible. But at least I was able to immediately avenge him by killing the goblin. I went to go check on the Tiber only to be accidentally killed when a piranha bit his toes and he rage attacked, killing me instantly. Note to self,
Yeah, I got a
don't
chicken
get on
from.
the shark people's bad side. I got back to my stuff, grabbing it from my grave, and the Tiber was still happy to have my recruitment meet, even if he had killed me. When I got a chance to place a sign in remembrance of Terrible, my terrible Pteranodon, that truly was terrific for the time. In the morning, a Therizino had ended up on my beach, and these things are absolutely deadly. It had even gained the attention of my Pteranodon, so I whistled away my PT before aggroing the Theri. That was so close. I'm just glad that the Nature Defender was able to win the fight, as that Theri would have ruined my day. I need to get one of those Nature Defenders sometime. I continued trying to recruit the Tiber, but they were pretty hard to convince, so it was taking a really long time to recruit them. I finally had one of the Tiber fully recruited in the evening, and they were so happy to be a part of the team.
Get
They
your.
even let me ride on their shoulders, so I gave them a recruitment badge to help me finish recruiting their friend, as that is one feature of Pyria. Sentients are mostly all tameable once you have your first sentient, as they are able to spread the word of your rule, recruiting others to your cause. So you're not expected to sit there shoving meat up there. Making
Yeah, I
them,
got it.
I ended up
Chicken.
naming my first Tiber Bruce, and Bruce ended up helping me take out a stupid seagull to his father.
I got a little
And finally,
chicken.
in the
Alright,
morning,
chat.
Bruce
I'm gonna
had
end
finished
stream now.
recruiting his friend to the tribe when that paladin from earlier
Had
was now
fun
here,
playing this.
interested in hearing what Bruce had to say.
Real
So I
lot.
left Bruce to finish recruiting the paladin while I tamed the nearby
Fun playing
Ursus.
Minecraft.
I named Bruce's friend, Brucette, when I realized Bruce was actually a better recruiter than I thought, as she was busy recruiting a goblin stabber, one of the wizard's minions. A kobold did try to assassinate me, but Bruce and Brucette had my back
See y'all
and quickly
later.
took it out. You'll have to
Bye
try
bye,
harder than
chat.
that.